What's up YouTube? I'm Guy, and today on the channel we're going to check out a watch from a micro brand that you might not be familiar with. Today we have a watch on loan from a viewer who I have to send out a very big thank you for and an apology because I've had it a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but I do appreciate the loan. It means the world to me and I can't thank you enough. Now the watch that we're talking about is from a company called Sablier, which is French for hourglass, fittingly enough. And the model of watch that we have is the Grand Cru 44, because it's a 44mm case diameter watch. This watch is a little bit on the exclusive side in that it is limited to a production quantity of 250 watches. So, very likely that you've never heard of this watch because it's very limited, and micro brand watches are not something that you can pick up at every single watch dealer in the country. As a matter of fact, I believe this is only sold at a couple of dealers, but nevertheless a cool watch that I'm happy to have here to show you guys today. One of the main hallmark features about the Sablier Grand Cru is its concave double AR coated crystal. It's something that you're probably never going to see on another watch. And the reason why is because the company owns the patent for that design. It is very unique, and when we go over to the Tabletop View to take a close look at that, I'll try to point it out, but I'm afraid that it's not going to show up on camera as well as it does in person. Needless to say though, I do want you to be completely clear in how sort of extraordinary that feature is, that crystal. It is something, again, you're not going to see anywhere else, and quite beautifully done, if I'm being perfectly honest. Some other features about this watch that are cool is, as the name suggests, Grand Cru, which I believe translates from French to mean a wine or a vineyard of the highest quality. It features a lot of design elements that harken to the wine industry, something that the wine connoisseur in you might connect with if you're that type of person. I personally don't drink wine, but I can appreciate the design and the beauty that went into the execution of this design very much because I am a horology or a watch collector, and in that aspect of it, I find the watch to be pretty impressive. Now, as I understand it, the engineer that designed this watch is actually an engineer, a mechanical engineer that makes products for the medical equipment industry. I don't think that's the right word, equipment, but he makes, medical tools, basically. And a lot of that experience in designing those medical devices, I think that's the right word I was looking for, went into perfecting the ergonomics of this watch. And I'll go ahead and point some of those out once we dive over to the Tabletop View and look at the watch closer. But I thought it was interesting that I think the design of this watch went through something like 10 or 11 iterations, or maybe it was more like 16 over the course of 10 or 11 years, something to that effect. So a lot of time and a lot of thought went into perfecting the design of this watch to make it both, elegant and refined and beautiful, but also very ergonomic. And I think they achieved their goal for the most part. Now, this watch does come in a little bit thick. It wears a little bit tall on the wrist, but that might not necessarily be a bad thing. While this is most likely a dress style or genre watch, it's something a little bit different that you might want to sort of show off, to use as a conversation piece, to wear out and maybe garner a little bit of attention because of its extreme level of uniqueness. So that it's a little bit large for this genre of watch might not necessarily be a negative for you, but it's something to keep in mind if you're considering picking one up. So we'll go ahead and dive over to the Tabletop View, take a close-up look at this watch for a minute. I'll tell you all of the features, the specifications, and then once we're done with that, we'll close out this video with my final thoughts. Alright guys, I'm going to give you a nice close-up look at this Sablier Grand Cru and go over the basic features and specifications for you. First things first, we'll talk about the case dimensions. We have a 44mm case diameter, not including the crown, with a lug width coming in at 22mm. The thickness is roughly 13mm, and from lug to lug, from edge to edge, or what I always like to call the watch's wingspan, we have a measurement of 51 millimeters. Now the hallmark for this watch is an extremely unique design feature. It is a double AR-coated concave sapphire crystal, and it's certainly not going to show up on camera as well as I would like, but if you're able to perceive this in this sort of two-dimensional video format, that crystal is very beautifully concaved, as well as the dial and even the handsets. The entire watch has this concave, sort of sloping, just absolutely beautifully executed design. You know, it is fantastic, and it is a patent that this company holds, which is truly unique in the watch industry. You're not going to find anything quite like this. Now, also, when we talk about the case, another unique feature, it features a wine glass profile, as you can see here from the sides. It has this very elegant sloping profile that definitely invokes a wine glass motif, if you will. And another feature that also goes in line with that is this current running seconds hand. You can see that it has a sort of corkscrew style second hand, which is another really unique feature. This watch most certainly is for somebody that is both a horology collector or enthusiast, as well as maybe a fine wine aficionado. It is for somebody that wants something a little bit different and potentially something a little bit exclusive, because it is fairly limited to only 250 pieces. Now, other features about this watch, we do have a screw down crown, which is at the 2 o'clock position, and if we look at the profile of this crown, you can see that that also, in matching with the dial and the crystal, has a concave surface, so it ties this theme together even in one more step. A nice thing about this crown, actually there's a couple of things. Number one, that concave surface, when you're screwing the crown back down, you can easily and evenly apply downward pressure. Your thumb just sort of fits into that cavity as you're pushing down on the crown to screw it back in. It's a nice but very subtle little feature or enhancement that you don't see on most watches that have a flat or convex surface at the edge of their crown. Now, this crown is, of course, attached to an ETA 25 jewel, I believe ETA 2824-2 movement with a date complication down at the roughly 430 position. The ETA movement is, I believe, not the base EBOSH for the 2824. I think it's a slightly higher grade movement, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% possible, but that is what I am led to believe. Now, the finishing on this case is outstanding. Every single piece of the case is a very high polished, extremely lustrous finish. If we look at the sides there, I'm sure you're catching the reflections of myself and my camera there. Outstanding, extremely high polished finish. If you like a watch that is polished with very, very nice quality, this might be something that you're going to want to look into. On the back of the case, we have an exhibition display window there with a very mildly decorated rotor, but we do have the Sablier text there nonetheless, and yeah, overall, a nice little presentation, if not anything outstanding or highly decorated. The watch features this very nice leather strap. It is riding on a dual button deployant, which is a buckle system that I really like quite a bit. Pushing the two deployment buttons here opens it up to a very nice high quality swing arm clasp system. The nice thing about these buckles, and this one of course is signed with the Sablier hourglass logo there, is that you can set it once to your size, and then you don't have to keep putting the metal tongue through the holes on your strap over and over and over. Makes your strap last quite a bit longer. Closing it up is obviously pretty simple. Just snaps back down, and there you go. In looking at the dial nice and closely here, and again, it is this concave dial and handset. It's overall otherwise fairly flat, and what I mean by flat is it doesn't feature heavy, dense applied markers. It's a very minimalist dial with a pretty simplistic design. We have an outer chapter ring with Arabic numerals of 5 through 60 for your current seconds or minutes, depending on how you want to look at it, and then simple stick or baton style markers for the rest of the indices, with the exception of the 6, 9, and 12 being slightly oversized rectangular markers. The branding over at the 3 o'clock position has the Sablier name and logo, and then down at the 6 o'clock position, just above that marker, you have the automatic text. Otherwise, it's a very simple, very minimalist dial, and I think it's a very nice layout. The handsets are these, similar to the markers, baton-style hands with a slightly oversized hour hand and a thinner minute hand. The current second hand is highlighted in red, and again, it has this nice wine theme with this corkscrew style tip. Overall, it's a very interesting and very unique design that is going to be perfect for somebody, again, that's something of a wine enthusiast and a horology or watch collector. At the 4:30 position, we do have the date complication there. It's a white dial with black text, pretty simplistic. The framing of the date is not embellished or anything oversized or framed around it. It's just subtle and inset into the dial. It looks very good. Now this watch is limited again to 250 pieces, but that's per case. It's not per dial combination. So there's a number of different dials options and handset options that they offer, but in total, as I understand it, there's just 250. So you might get 10 or 15 or 20 available like this particular coloration and handset options, and then some other options in different variations. Now for this genre of watch, it is a little bit on the large size, as I've probably already mentioned. The thickness, it feels much thicker than it actually is. At 13 millimeters, it's not any thicker than my Rolex Submariner, for example. And you might think like, oh, well, that's a dive watch. It's supposed to be thick. But to me, that watch wears pretty thin compared to a lot of other dive watches that I've had in my possession. Now that this is roughly the same size, you would think that it would feel more or less the same on the wrist, but it presents much differently because it has this absolutely flat case back and it has this wine glass profile shaped case. It does wear a little bit taller than you might prefer if you're looking for an under the cuff low profile dress watch. But it's such a unique and interesting design that I think that is, certainly forgivable. And this isn't the type of watch that you're going to wear to hide under the cuff. It's kind of more of almost a showpiece, I guess. And, it's not of the highest tier of luxury watches, but it's certainly not a cheap or inexpensive watch by any stretch of the imagination. This is a relatively nice piece, and it's something that you're probably going to want to show off, and it may very well be, a conversation piece amongst other watch collectors or friends that are interested in watches and or wine for that matter, considering the overall thematic design of this watch. So it's not something that you probably want to be understated and low profile. So I think that the fact that it stands up high on the wrist a little bit and stands out a little bit is probably a positive for the type of person that's going to want to go ahead and commit to buying something like this. So we're going to jump back over to the studio view and I'll give you my final thoughts on this watch and close out the rest of this video. I'll be right back. So what are my final thoughts for the Sablier Grand Cru? Well, it is a very high quality watch. Number one, it's made in America, which is something that I find appealing. It is not completely manufactured in America. It's made in America from Swiss parts, not the least of which is the Swiss ETA movement that's inside of it. But because it is a USA produced, manufactured, or made in America product, it's a little bit on the expensive side, and that's going to be, for me personally, potentially a negative at between $2,100 and $2,400 depending on strap options. That said, it is somewhat exclusive, being limited to 250 pieces. So generally when something is a little more exclusive, it's a little bit more expensive. It is what it is. The size of it is a little bit of a negative for me, but on the plus side, in looking at their website, they do have a smaller 39mm version as well, which would probably be more appealing to me. But since this one was on loan from a viewer, it's what I have here. 44mm, though, is a little bit large for my roughly 6 3/4 inch wrist. But the quality is outstanding, the finishing is fantastic, the overall fit and finish, the design elements that are truly unique to this watch are very interesting, and if I were a wine connoisseur as well as a horology or watch collector, I would be very interested in this design. I would find it very appealing. Now, being that I'm not really much into wine myself, that aspect of this watch is something that probably falls a little short for me, But, you know, if you're the type of person that is, you know, into that sort of stuff, it could be a big bonus. But yeah, overall, I think that the quality is fantastic. Everything about it is, you know, done perfectly, honestly. And other than, you know, some nitpicks about the overall size and, you know, potentially the cost being a little bit higher than I might personally want to spend, overall it is a great watch, and I'm really happy to have had it on loan here to check out. Now, that's going to close out this video for today. If you guys liked this video, go ahead and click that like button. Of course, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And as always, if you're interested in helping me out and supporting the channel, down in the notes or the description below this video, as well as in the About page on my YouTube channel, is a list of ways that you can help me out. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I look forward to bringing you something new later on this week. Have a good one, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.